What's going on, everyone? Welcome back into another edition of the Noble, Steady, Sorta Sports Talk. My name's Tyler. I'll be your host today, along with my co-host, Erosif or Joseph Miracoli. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, guys? What's up?
Oh, man, it's a good day, especially in sports. There's a crap ton going on right now. I mean, I think the main one on everybody's mind is good old March Madness this time of year. And let me tell you, it's been wild already.
My bracket's already dead.
Dude, you and a bunch of others, including mine.
I say that, but I have. Did you fill out? How many brackets did you fill out?
I only filled out 2 this year. I tried to rein myself in. I only did 2.
I'm gonna get on a soapbox real quick because we talked about this at work.
This is where we're at.
People who fill out one bracket are psychopaths. You fill out 2 brackets. You fill out 2 brackets. You do one for your heart and one for your head. Okay. Perfect example. I'm wearing LSU stuff. Okay. I'm an LSU fan through and through. LSU's men's team didn't make it. I'm a UNC lacrosse fan because LSU doesn't have lacrosse in college. So anytime UNC is involved, I'll, hey, I hope they win. I put them as my national champion. That's my heart bracket. My head bracket has UConn. Better chance of winning. Yeah,
UConn
a lot of people have picked them.
Has looked really good this season, especially when they're fully healthy. I know they've had some injuries throughout this year, but I mean, let me tell you, when they roll and they're rolling. I went with the big man over in Purdue. I know they got embarrassed last year against the 16th seed, but I just feel like that's going to be motivation. And eventually, I think Edey's just too much of a matchup problem for most teams, right? So that's my thinking there. But, take it with a grain of salt. This is also the guy who had Mississippi State beating Michigan and then going on to beat UNC in the second round. So take it with a grain of salt.
I mean, I also had South Carolina making the national championship game. So let's not call ourselves basketball experts by any means.
By any stretch. But we have fun with it. Now let's get into something a little more serious, and we'll circle back around to all the upsets and everything like that that's been happening. Shohei Ohtani for the Dodgers. Man, this story is getting wild, Broseph. Have you heard about how his interpreter apparently stole $4.5 million from him and tried to cover gambling debts with a gentleman that was running a bookkeeping operation in Southern California?
This is wild to me. Like, first off, how did they assume he came up with this money? I know that there's a deal where Shohei gave him money, I'm assuming for gambling debt. That's what I would assume.
Well, that's the story.
How does one start this, peer into the deal? Like they've shown, I've seen videos of Shohei and the interpreter right before everything went down. And they're both like, yeah, man, joking around, having fun. And it's all of a sudden it just flipped. So what have you heard?
So the different things I've been hearing is that there is evidence of at least $1 million that Ohtani gave to, or at least was aware of, being transferred for these. I don't know if it was debts. I don't want to go in saying that definitively, but he gave him $1 million. Or there's at least 2 wire transfers of $500,000 to this bookkeeping operation with his name on it. Okay, that's the link there. There's just a lot of inconsistencies with the story, and I'm sure we'll get more information as the investigation goes on. Because now you have the IRS, the FBI, a lot of government agencies are looking into this because this was all discovered through an investigation of this bookkeeper in Southern California, from my understanding. These records were found from the wire transfers were found, and then the story broke when I guess Ohtani's representatives were claiming that he is a victim of massive theft. Then it came out that basically his interpreter did a 90-minute interview when the rumblings of this started coming along on the phone with an ESPN reporter, and I apologize, my name escapes me at this moment.
Is it Jeff Passan?
Yeah, I believe so.
I know I saw him on
No, it was a woman. I'm sorry.
It was a woman. Okay.
It was a woman. My apologies. And look, it's a great. If you can find the video, people, please watch it. It is a great insight into her interview with the interpreter. He basically told her is that he got a little bit over his skis with gambling. But it was his problem, but that Ohtani knew what he was covering or helping him out with. Right. The big question is this 3.5 additional $1 million that's being alleged to be a part of this massive theft to pay off this gambling debts? My biggest question is, and I know they were friends beforehand from all my understandings and everything, but how in the world does this interpreter have access to this man's accounts? For what he's worth and the amount of representation and handlers and all this he probably has, how in the world did he get access to this account? That's where it gets a little fishy for me.
I'm sure something's going to come of it where there's a lot more that we don't know about. And I think that, I have my theory about everything, and I don't necessarily want to share it because I've shared it with you. I shared it with you yesterday. But it could come down to a lifestyle. Some people go in, think of it like this, and this is a really dark and demented example, but look at Aaron Hernandez. He had that lifestyle, that gang mentality. He brought it to college, and then he continued it into the pros. Sometimes when you're, it may be something that Shohei was like, oh, this is okay to do. I've done this in the past. And it just continue on. And then he becomes a pro. And it's like, oh, hey, like, let's continue this. But the Dodgers are more on top of they're minding their P's and Q's a little more because of everything that's gone on in the last 3-4 years.
Exactly. And let's also start by saying that there's no evidence so far of the bets in question being placed on MLB or on Major League Baseball. The interpreter, is saying that it was all on soccer matches and basketball. Nothing on MLB because he knew he was an employee of Major League Baseball, which, if you have that much self-awareness, why aren't you just not gambling in general? You know what I mean?
Right. It's something that when sports gambling became legal, you knew people were going to have to watch it. Like, it was going to be, the Pete Roses of the world who have gambled on baseball. You have Calvin Ridley bet on football games, and it's starting to become a thing where it's like, hey, you can't be a part of it. And you have these pro teams and these pro leagues have to take a hard stance and say, listen, I know it's tempting. Wait till you retire when you have all your money and then gamble it away. I don't care what you do once you leave. But as long as you're an employee of this company, because that's what these teams are, they're companies,
private,
you're held to this. You're held to this standard here.
I completely agree. I was always the proponent of, well, if you're not betting on your own sports, it doesn't matter. But the problem is it's too much of a slippery slope. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy sports gambling. I like to bet on sports. But there's a difference between a schmo like me compared to a superstar that is the face of the entire league. Because let me get your opinion real quick. You think that if this wasn't Ohtani and this is some other foreign player with an interpreter, do you think there's this much? It almost seems like
that's what would happen. It would be, we're taking care of this right now and this is done with. Or one of two things would happen. Either it would have been, hey, we're handling this now and it's done with, or it would have been a quiet little blip like, oh, hey, by the way, this happened, and then that's it.
Okay. Because I feel like for other instances, like, actually, you know what? I don't have a good example when it comes to gambling because there is no evidence to that Lincoln Ohtani yet, at least of public knowledge yet. So I don't want to make any connections between other cases that have been where there's actually been wrongdoing linked to them, right?
Right.
But I do agree with you that I feel like if it was a smaller, as in personality or face of the game, this would have been a small blip. Oh, this guy got dinged for sports gambling. He's gone. Not these kind of weird questions that come up of, wait, but how does this guy have access to his accounts? How did Ohtani not see that kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Right.
So
It's
I completely agree.
it's tough. It's tough because, you know, when you had like it's because it's the interpreter. It's because it's a middleman into whatever may be happening. It's not Ohtani himself is the culprit per se, but you have to like MLB has to do this investigation thoroughly to see if maybe he is involved. So right now it's just he's linked because it's his interpreter. It's not because it's him.
Exactly. Okay, that makes complete sense. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. I'm just going to kind of view it from another lens. That was a great point, Joey. People are going to say, "Well, I mean, it's legal. It's legal everywhere else. Why is California, where is it not legal? And what's the main difference, right?" I'm gonna tell you what the main difference is. With like your legal betting companies here, there's always going to be. You always have to put your money up front. They don't work off credit, right? So you can't get over your skis. You can't get in these huge debt holes that you can't get out of, right? Like everybody thinks of these bookies, old school bookies, where they have these guys that are going to like, "Where's money? I'm going to break your fingers," kind of thing.
It's in order to make the bet, you have to pay the money up front.
Exactly. Like if you want to lay a $10 bet, you have to give that $10 away automatically.
Yeah, and then it's if
and
you
it may
win,
come back.
we'll give it to you later. We'll give it back to you and then some later.
Exactly. It's not me being like, "Hey Joey, I want give me 20 on UConn." And you're like, "Okay,
and then I
good."
just write you down.
And then we settle up at the end of the week.
Right.
Exactly. I do agree with that. It does help avoid a lot of these circumstances because I'm assuming this interpreter would have gotten to a point where, oh man, I just can't afford to keep doing this anymore, and he wouldn't get this far into debt where he has to get allegedly have this massive theft.
What did he steal from? He stole from Ohtani?
Ohtani, yeah.
Okay.
So, like I said, timeline is there's definitive 2 $500,000 wire transfers to this bookmaker or a friend of this bookmaker in Southern California. Ohtani signed off on it. That is proven. That is a fact.
That's for Ohtani. Like it's not a lot of money because how much did he make in say LA? He's still in LA with the Angels. What was his like?
Oh, at least $500 million.
Okay, so he made $500 million. I looked up his salary this year, and I completely forgot his contract details when I was looking this up. He's making $2 million this year. That's it, $2 million. So essentially, that guy took a quarter.
Salary.
Right. What'd I say?
No, I'm just saying salary. That's not counting his endorsement.
He's salaried from the team $2 million. So that guy stole. What did they say he stole? Like a million?
Allegedly 3.5.
So he stole more than he's getting this year.
Yeah.
He's basically now, like, because of this guy stealing from him, he's working for free this year.
Yeah.
When you think of it that way, it's like, okay, so why did I have this guy in my inner circle? Like, get him out of here.
Exactly. And that's what makes it. Well, that's what seems kind of weird, right?
That's what makes the thing about the day of the game, that last little, like, the interaction between them in the dugout is just so weird that they're sitting. I'm telling you right now, if I was a billionaire, if someone stole $3 million from me, I ain't talking to that dude. I'm staying as far away from that guy as I can.
If somebody stole $3,500 from me, we're not chilling. You know what I mean?
If somebody stole $5 from me, I'm fucking headbutting him.
Exactly. Like there's some. That's why it's so weird to me, man. Like they're so chummy. Unless he just had no idea until while it was going on. But to me, that seems hard to believe. Like there's just a lot because there's reports out there. There was talks before the game about this. So that's just when the story got out was after the first game in Korea.
That's the other thing. They're in Korea when they figured this stuff out.
Like, side note, America's game in Korea, the opening day.
Side note, these games count, and they still have spring training games left to play. I think there's a bigger issue than spreading a game to other countries.
You know what? You're right. I retract that statement, and I retract that statement. The biggest issue is that it's like, hey, let's have our first games and go back to preseason.
Yeah. Like, could you imagine, like, oh, the NFL, like, hey, we're gonna have games in Australia. Like, we're gonna bring 2 teams to Australia, 4 teams to Australia. They're gonna play 3 games, and then they're gonna go back, and it's gonna be the preseason, and they're gonna get 3 bye weeks.
Huh.
Even though in Major League Baseball they'll get like 3 days off.
Yeah, but it's like, well,
which is basically their flight there. I think honestly what probably is happening is they only sent the players they know will make the team, because at this point you have to know. Like, you have to know your starting roster, right?
yeah, of course.
So they're like, we're going to take them. The rest of y'all, we're trying to figure out where they all going to double, triple, single, like where y'all going.
Oh, I don't think it's everybody. No, for sure. I definitely think, though, there's some guys where they have their kind of set roster, especially a team like the Dodgers that have spent a good amount of money on these people, like to build this roster. I wholeheartedly believe that they know who their lineup's going to be, how it's going to work, everything like that. And you're not going to bring everybody, but I'm sure you bring some utility guys just in case of injuries, that kind of thing. Because it's not like you can just be like, "Oh, got to call up AAA, and this guy will get on a 3-hour bus ride." It's kind of a little bit of a travel for him.
Yeah, like they probably brought a couple extra people.
Yeah,
like
I would
even
assume
if
so.
it's that probably weren't dressed out. They were like, look, there's a suite. You're going to sit way up there.
circa WrestleMania 17 with the WCW stars.
Yes, exactly.
The Skybox, man, which is a whole nother soapbox I can get on real quick. Why the Sky? I understand the amenities. I really do. I understand getting the TV, everything in there, blah blah. But why would I pay extra money to be further away from the field? If I'm going to sit in a suite and watch the game, I'm going to stay at home. I don't have to order any beer. I
But
can
you
just
got
get
to
it
think
delivered to
about
me.
it. But think about it. You're going to get really good food, and you don't have to pay for the food, and you don't have to pay for the drinks.
That cost is definitely built into the experience.
Okay, it's built into the experience, but I'm pretty sure it's like all you can eat of like certain things.
Look, and I can appreciate it. I'm just talking about from my point of view. But then you also, but
then you don't have to be with the peons like us, you know?
Exactly. No, but what I was trying to say is then you got to worry about traffic. You got to worry about getting down there. I mean, I already have the perfect indentation on my couch where my fat ass can sit down and watch the game. Okay.
But you don't get the home experience at the game.
That is, I will give you that. That is the only thing I could say.
Having been a person who has been to a Saints game, granted it was preseason, in a suite, and been to a Pelicans game in a suite.
Humble brag.
I mean, one of them was because, I'll be honest, the Pelicans and one of the Saints ones was because of the company I worked for had a suite.
I know. I went to the
but
game
anyway, the Pelicans game, right?
Yes.
I don't think you went to the Saints game. You weren't working there at the time.
No, I was not.
No, that was a
story for a different time.
I digress. Yes, I digress. So anyway, having been at those games in a suite, like my dad went with me to one of the preseason games. I think it was in 2015 we went, and it was a Patriots Saints preseason game. My dad doesn't want to go to another Saints game unless it's in a suite. He's like, I'm done. Like, I'm retired. I don't need to go anymore. Unless it's a suite, I'm not going. He's like, you can give me 50-yard line, like best seats on the 50-yard line. If it's not a suite, I'm not going.
So basically, you got spoiled.
Yeah, because we didn't have to pay for the food. Like, it was I'll go ahead and tell the story. I mean, it's 8 years since that, 9 years. My mom had passed away. My nephew's dad was one of the sales reps at Mercedes-Benz of New Orleans. Mercedes-Benz had the naming rights to the stadium, so they had their own suite. So he said, hey, you and your dad have been through a lot. I want to give y'all suite tickets. I said, okay. So we took them. We went to the game. We didn't pay for food. We didn't pay for drinks. We didn't pay for nothing. And it was like, all right, I'm done. I don't need to go anymore. I've lived my life. So I get the suite experience.
You got spoiled. I get it. I'm just talking from us peons that haven't experienced a professional football game in a suite. I mean, I totally agree with you about the atmosphere, because that is the only reason I will go to a game. Because I can name 50 reasons not to go, but it can never beat the experience, right?
Right.
I will Always agree with that. And that
Honestly,
usually outweighs it.
I feel like a suite experience is better in an outdoor stadium than an indoor stadium, especially if you're out in the elements. Like,
I was about to say,
if you're in
so you don't have
Buffalo
to
with
worry
the
about those.
snow, or if you're in Tampa in the hot, like you could get some like, hey, I'm comfortable now.
I don't know, man. I feel like if you're going to a game in Buffalo and it's snowing, you have to experience that. Which
I
you know
agree.
what?
I agree, and you agree. You know who doesn't agree? You know who doesn't agree?
Who's that?
Taylor Swift.
Okay. Well, you know what?
She wants to be in a suite.
She could shake it off. Okay, she could shake it off. Calm down.
By the way, you notice how much Taylor Swift are you hearing now?
None. Thank God. Anyway, nothing
was
against Taylor Swift. It was just too much, being too much down my throat, you know. And speaking, can we just go back to sports where I feel safe?
Yes. Let's go back to
All right.
Let's go back to our safe place.
Let's go back to our safe place. And starting off with safe place, let's talk about March Madness, man. We've had some upsets. I know our brackets are busted. I'm a little lighter in the wallet due to some non-upsets that didn't happen. You know, we could have all used some Moorhead State wins there. But I digress.
You had Moorhead State?
Everybody could do a little bit better with some Moorhead, you know? Anyway, you know, it was really sad to see him kind of go limp in the second half, but, you know,
You're trying.
happens to the best of us.
You're trying.
Yeah, but I digress. What I really want to say is the one that shocked me, I want to get your opinion on it, was Oakland and Kentucky. Oh,
yes.
My goodness. That dude could not miss.
It's
that for Oakland. Holy cow. Like, he's a rec league player. Like, this is the dude I expect to wear fucking headbands with his socks up to his knees and with the
with the Jason Williams shorts.
Yeah, with Jason Williams shorts that is just ready to lock you down. Hats off to him. It was great to watch. I loved every second of it, and this is why I love March.
Who do they get? They get NC State, right?
Yes. Another double-digit seed. Who doesn't love that? I'm going NC State. I'm going NC State on that one.
I have NC State making it to the Sweet 16, so you know I got to go them in my number one bracket.
Is that the bracket with Corey, or the one we're both in?
Oh, I didn't do the one with Corey. Shit.
Well, never mind.
Thanks for reminding me of that. I know I meant to do one with him, but no, it's my ESPN bracket. It's my heart bracket. My heart
bracket. Well, I mean, look, they went on a heck of a run during the ACC tournament. And speaking of that, well, because there was another one that was a lower seed that ended up making a run in their conference tournament and winning it. Like, let me ask you, man, have you noticed, like, this year compared to last year's, that, like, there's some matchups this year that are complete blowouts that watching them, you're like, oh my God, they're just outmatched.
So there's been one overtime game that I'm aware of. I think it's the only one.
Yeah.
And then, the other ones are pretty much decided with like 5 minutes left in the second. And
give credit to Colorado and Florida too was another one I was really close.
I'll be honest. I think this first round you're going to have your blowouts. As you get deeper in the tournament, that's where you're going to start getting a little bit closer, depending on matchups and depending on upsets. Really, right now as of recording, Arizona's beaten Dayton by, I'm trying to do quick math, 7 with 10-13 left in the second.
Okay.
So it's kind of staying at that, hey, we'll keep you in it, but we're going to try to stay ahead. You just got to, it's about runs and when you get them. If you could get a run late and you could keep it within single digits, then, that's the magic, that's the magic you need about with March Madness.
I guess what I mean is like, so you had your top seeds that didn't win their conference tournament. Like, you got your Houston, your UNC. Yeah, because NC State won their conference tournament, right? Mm-hmm. Or am I mistaken on that one? No, I thought so. Okay.
Let me check. I'll double check.
If you don't mind fact checking me for me real quick, so I'm fairly certain that is. The case I'm trying to make is that basically these lower teams are getting the automatic bids, right? So you're getting some lower seeds that aren't as good as they normally are. that are able to pull off these upsets because they're taking automatic bids away from the top seeds, if that makes sense. Like they wouldn't normally make the tournament if it wasn't for the run they made in the conference tournament.
Well, I think also they weigh so much of Selection Sunday on the conference tournament and the later part of the season, which, I mean, you want the best teams to make it. So, like, if LSU would have made a deep run and would have, say, they made the semifinal,
it would have been close.
They were probably like last 4 in.
Maybe,
if
but
anything,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But like, so do you think it's more recency bias, maybe?
Yes, 100%. It's the same in football. You know, you look at a lot of it where it's, hey, this team beat, team A beat team B, but team B beat a team that team A couldn't beat. So then it's, this thing. So it's, later in the season, clearly everything they did before. Hey, Florida State had a really good year. Their quarterback went down. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, nah, he's done.
That's a good point. That is a very fair point, and I couldn't agree more with you on that one.
NC State did win the ACC championship.
I knew I was fairly certain on that one. Yeah, that was my point, is that some of these lower seeds aren't as good as they were because they're not like, for instance, they're not these mid-major teams that are doing what they're supposed to do, right? Like, it's not a great analogy, but imagine a team that runs this like lower end league the entire way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe doesn't play anybody else, but they're lower end conference. Their only way in is winning their conference championship,
like McNeese.
So yeah, exactly.
Who did you see their non-conference schedule?
Yeah,
Mississippi School for Women.
I know.
LeTourneau is D3. I played them in soccer at Concordia. They're a D3 school. Well, look, they're in my conference.
They made it to the tournament. They did what they needed to do. But that's one of the games I'm talking about, that where you're watching it and you're like, oh, wow, they're just outclassed. Like, it's not even close.
Yeah, it was bad. Like,
just watching it, Joey. Like, and look, I'm not a basketball scout. I will firmly believe my abilities to watch football and baseball better and evaluate talent. But my goodness, you're just watching. You're like, there's no size. They have an athleticism advantage. There's just they can't do anything on offense.
They're honestly
smothering them.
So I hate keep bringing up college football, but I mean it's prevalent because college football is about to have but college football is starting to get a playoff system, and we talk about, we shouldn't let some of these schools in because who do they play? It's not like, Liberty would have made it this year if it was a 12-team playoff.
Exactly.
So you look at it and go, you're like, exactly, like they wouldn't have been that good. But in all honesty, look at the pool they're pulling from. They're pulling from, what is it, 115, 119 schools. Okay. You're pulling 14 of them. You're pulling 14 of them in 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this, they're pulling 68. They're pulling 68 schools out of, there's exponentially more basketball schools.
Yeah, like three.
So your talent level in football should be like essentially this, right? Your basketball talent level is this.
Well, just sheer numbers game.
So you're gonna have but like that worry of, I don't want these games to be blowouts and this and that. It's like, dude, you're gonna have that. Like, sometimes it's your day, sometimes it's not, and that's not something that we should use to compare because any given day the number one team could lose. Michigan and App State. That's a perfect example. But
still one of the greatest calls of all time. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Still one of the best calls of all time.
But and then you have, who was it? Loyola? No, it wasn't. Oh no, it was UMBC. Beat number one seed.
Yep.
It can happen. It just, it's not going to happen often, but you get more games out of it. Accept that. Like, enjoy more games. That's what people are calling for. They want more games. So we give you this thing where you get more games, but it's like, that team's going to get blown out. It's like, but you're getting more games.
Oh, well, it's definitely a give and take, right? Like, not everybody's going to be great. It's not the NFL where every team can legitimately probably beat everybody unless you're the Panthers. Yes, I did just take a shot at the Panthers there. They suck. Anyway, there is parity everywhere. Unfortunately, in college athletics, it's not like that due to NILs or the amount of transfers that you have now, because kids are going to go to the best teams or where they're going to make money. And I'm not saying that's the end all be all for them, but it is a deciding factor. And that's why I think I think that parity is important, but I do agree with you. More games is better than just not having an option at all, if that makes sense.
It makes sense, but it's you want the more quality game, but you got to hope that upset A doesn't happen. If let's say in a hypothetical world, last year's 12 teams that would have made it, right?
Okay. Yep.
So somehow Liberty wins to get to the quarterfinals. Okay.
Yeah.
They're playing. I'm trying to think of which was a good game. They're playing Texas. Okay. Washington won. Washington, Texas, you would say was a good game. The Sugar Bowl was a good game this year, right?
It was a very good game, yes.
Okay. Let's say Liberty pulls out the upset on Washington. Your Sugar Bowl is Liberty University against the University of Texas. That doesn't seem appetizing, but you know what? Liberty won to get there. Right.
Yeah.
Liberty won to get there. So they deserve your eyeballs just as much as Washington does, just as much as Michigan does if they make it that far. So that's one of the reasons why I look at TCU Georgia. They had a blowout in that national championship game. It was bad. But TCU did their job against Michigan.
Oh,
so therefore,
100%.
They earned the right to get there.
I completely agree with you. So I guess where we're kind of getting at is, because we kind of went way all over the place on this one, is that we let more games, great, we love it, and we're not but we do understand that comes with the territory that you may not get the best games all the time.
Yeah, you're gonna get your blowouts.
You just never know where you can have these Cinderella runs, and I think especially we're using football a lot. But with college, what college football playoff is, we haven't had a Cinderella story team really. I guess you could say TCU, but they're still in a major conference, right?
Well, I think the playoff was essentially set up to where the Power Five were the front runners to always get in. And
of course,
if you had UCF went undefeated one year, they weren't even considered for the college football playoff.
Yep.
So,
back-to-back years, if I'm not mistaken.
with them whittling down. No, I think their second year was when they played LSU in the Fiesta
That's
Bowl.
what it was.
And the birth of Joe Burrow happened.
Yes.
But you're gonna have with the number of conferences starting to whittle down, because I'm beginning to kind of believe that we're going to be down to 3, not too far in the future, that you're going to have to rely on those group of 5 conferences to bring teams, to the table to win a championship.
Well, it'll just be because everybody's a part of those conferences.
That's a possibility, but I don't see these conferences getting bigger than 18.
Well, no, what I mean is your major players, like your teams that are always going to be there, like your Ohio State, Michigan's, LSU, that kind of stuff. Texas are going to be a part of these conferences.
They're gonna stay in the conferences they're in. Well, not if you're Florida State or Clemson, possibly.
We'll save that for another episode.
I got something else I want to talk about. NBA playoffs have started. Speaking of basketball, the NBA playoffs are coming up. NHL playoffs are coming up. The race is on for these spots.
Ew, how about our Pellies, man? You hold down that 5 seed. I was talking to somebody about it in the NBA playoffs. I'm like, look, man, I just want them to get out of the play-in. I would love for them to get a home court for the first series, but just stay out of the play-in. That's all
Listen,
I want this year.
they're only 1.5 games out of fourth to have a majority of home games for at least the first round.
Exactly.
Like,
it could definitely happen. I mean, losing Bi is a big hit, but apparently it's only a knee contusion. So after 2 weeks, he's going to be reevaluated.
It could be way worse.
I mean, look, it's just going to be more point Zion is what's going to come down to. And you know what? I know most of our audience doesn't know me yet. I've been hard on Zion. It's just because of the amount of talent that he has. But man, I got to give him his due. Man has been balling out.
I'll be honest. I think every player on that team, the coaches on that team, something happened in the offseason leading into this year, even part of the way through this year, that they must have got in his head and said, hey, you want to be a star? You got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort. And I mean, he dropped 25 pounds.
You know what it was the play-in tournament final or semifinal.
Easily
when he got we were all exposed. Like the entire Pelicans were exposed that game. But that was one thing that stuck out was the defensive effort, and he took it in stride. Like, and that's what you want to see from your superstar athletes, right? If they falter, I don't even say falter, but had like injury history, or make them or aren't playing at the top of the game, is own it, figure it out, and produce after you figure it out. When you come up with a game plan so you can get back to producing like you can. And that's admirable. So hats off to Zion, but it's going to get a lot harder now that he's running without BI. But we're gonna trust in Trey Murphy and CJ. Still going to be that steady hand that calms the ship. But I think point Zion is going to be even more of a factor this time.
It's going to be interesting to see, especially when they get on that run. Coming up, it's supposedly a tough homestand.
It is going to be a tough homestand.
But I mean, I think they close out the regular season. 4 of the 5 teams are playoff teams.
Yep.
So you batten down the hatches and hey, one game at a time.
Let me ask you, what would be a successful season to you? You want me to tell you mine before?
Yeah. Because I say mine some thought.
I'm going to say if you make the play-in, getting out of the if you're in the play-in, okay, if that somehow you fall down to that, it's getting out of that and at least winning a game or two. I feel like especially if you have home court advantage, it's winning a playoff series. If you can win one and make it to this, like the conference semis, and I feel like it's an accomplishment. It's a good season.
So if the Pelicans are the 4-5 matchup,
it'd be against the Clippers more than likely.
It'd be the Clippers. And if they win that series, what seed do they get? Do they get the 1-8?
Yeah, we get the 1-8 winner.
So then we play. It could be anyone from Golden State, LA, Sacramento, Phoenix. Just because
all great teams.
They're currently in the play-in right now, or Oklahoma City.
Exactly.
I think we match up pretty well against Oklahoma City.
We have a lot more size.
So I think that for it to be a successful season, you got to make the conference final.
Ooh, man. I mean, I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it.
I'll say this. They're off to this is probably the best year they've had since 2011. This is the best year they've had since 2011.
Health.
Yeah.
100%.
So
that's what it is.
You have to, back up all this hype. People are saying like, hey, maybe the Pelicans are real. So prove it.
We have national analysts eating their words because of how well the Pelicans are playing. So you know what? You just got to keep it rolling. The BI injury is going to be a tough one, but you got the shooting, you got I should say the spacing, you got the playmaking ability. You can play defense when we're engaged, and we got great depth on our team. So,
but I think
sky's the limits, really.
It's 2 weeks and then he's reevaluated. That 2 weeks puts you trying to see what game it would be.
Ideally, you rest him to the playoffs.
Around the Spurs, Suns, which after the Spurs game, Your next home game is the last game of the season. You have 4 games on the road. So if he's not healthy by that road schedule, you rest him. Hey. Now, if we're struggling, then you put him in against the Lakers just so that you can
maybe get his legs underneath him or something.
Yeah, give him something because the time frame from when the last game is to the first game of the non-play-in tournament playoff games, like the regular playoff tournament games, I want to say is like 5 days, 6 days.
Yeah, it's a good little stretch.
So you have a week where you're not playing. So you got to keep that game shape. You got to keep that game that strong game mentality going. You know what this makes me miss? Somewhat. When the division champs were the top 3 seeds. You do realize that if the playoffs started today, the Pelicans would be a 3 seed.
I understand that. I do, but I'm more of a best being rewarded. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Since it's such a long season.
So we were talking about this the other day. Because we brought up, again, we're going from sport to sport, with football, when the Saints played the Seahawks in Seattle and they were the worst. The Seahawks had the.
So I'm going to stop you right there. Yeah. When the year after they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I understand that. It's just the way the leagues promote their style, right? The NBA's never really been like a huge division kind of thing, right? Like it's never been a big deal to win your division in the NBA. Like even when you were getting the top 3 seeds, people were still like, eh. It's like, yay, we did it. But in the NFL, it's like, oh, okay, cool. We get a home playoff game.
Well, I think that boils down to the fact that you could have 3 or 4 teams from your division make the playoffs.
Exactly.
If you had it to where, like, let's hypothetically say the NBA said, you know what? We want to have less teams in the playoffs. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the division champs and then the next best record. Whoever that is, it's top 4, and we'll seed you based on that.
So that would definitely make it more interesting.
It would lose the excitement that is the NBA playoffs.
Oh, yeah, 100%. You lose the excitement there, and then you're also cutting a lot of extra TV games too.
Right. And so that's why I'm not like, oh, we need to go to this. Like,
the
playoffs, honestly, in my opinion, the playoffs were fine when it was just top 8 make it. The play-in tournament adds a little extra, so I get it.
Oh, I like it.
But, I mean, like my perfect example, okay? Because, in all honesty, it's as similar as you can get it, where it's the NHL playoffs have a 7-game series each round. 8 teams make it. The NBA, 8 teams made it. 7 rounds, 7-game series. The NHL realizes, hey, this is kind of not broken. Let's not fix it.
Exactly. Let's not muck.
The only difference that the NHL did, which I kind of like, is your playoff bracket is set by your division. So the top 3 from each division make it, plus 2 wildcard teams. Those wildcard teams get the winner of the division in each, on each ladder, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, each bracket.
Gotcha.
So you play within your division. The next round, it's your division matchup. So it's technically your division champion. If you had to come up with some kind of, it's your divisional round in the NFL equivalent.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Then you have your conference champion and then the Stanley Cup final.
Okay.
I like that only because it makes those 7-game series a little more meaningful and a little more rowdy, like a little more like the hits are a little harder because it's, hey, you're in my division. I don't like you.
I was about to say.
It brings up those rivalries a little more. You don't really get that in the NBA because you can't hit, but you do get a little, like, you get chippy. You get the chippiness in the NBA.
It's more of a player-to-player thing since there's a lot more player movement in the NBA. And then you do have rivalries that kind of develop over being successful, right? Like the Lakers and the Celtics, like they just always met each other in the playoffs,
Right.
in the finals. When it was LeBron and the Warriors, right? Like LeBron versus the Warriors, whether it mostly in Cleveland,
The 3
right?
years
Like
in a row that we had it.
exactly. But so I get what you're saying there. But Broseph, I'm not going to change the subject, but I am.
Mm-hmm.
There's a very really funny line that goes across our ticker. If our audience has been paying attention, that I feel like you need to jump into and delve a little bit more in, and we'll leave the people with something a funny story before we sign off. What you think?
Okay, so we're gonna travel
As it goes
thousands of
across the
miles
screen right
away.
here.
Yeah, there it is, right there. Things guys don't share: women in a car. F1 stars forced to share one of them. So, Formula One, 2 drivers on a team, 2 cars. You have to travel around the world with that, but you have to save money because you have a cap. You can't spend more than that, or you could lose championships, wins, that kind of stuff.
Essentially, a salary cap for F1 is what you're
Right.
referring to.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So Williams Racing employs 2 drivers, Alex Albon and Logan Sargent. They're in Australia this week. The last race was in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So they took the car from Jeddah to, I want to say, their factory in Grove, England, and then to Australia. To cut on travel, they brought only 2 cars. They have enough parts that if something happened to the car, they could fix it, they could replace it, but they didn't bring another chassis, which you put the parts on for the car.
Yeah.
Typically, you would have, like back in the day, they had 3 cars built ready to go. Now, with the cost cap, you can't. So they brought 2 chassis. In free practice 1, Alex Albon, car got a little squirrely. He slammed into the wall, destroying the car. He destroyed it bad enough that he put a hole in the chassis. Well, you have then, written off that car. You can't use that chassis. It's unsafe. He's doing better than Logan Sargent is. Logan Sargent's still kind of trying to learn the car. He's starting to figure it out, but he hasn't been getting the points. He hasn't been getting the finishes. So Williams, team principal James Vowles, had to make a hard decision to say, Logan, we're giving Alex the car because he has a better chance of getting points than you. So Alex Albon took Logan Sargent's car and is going to race it in the Australian Grand Prix tonight at midnight, our local time. Meanwhile, Logan Sargent's going to stand in the garage and watch his car go around the track.
So what you're saying is, basically, since they couldn't, due to the cap, couldn't bring an extra chassis, they had, and the other guy, and he wrecked his. Now this poor dude now has to sit on the sideline and not participate because of that.
Yep.
It's like, hey, buddy, we like you, we really do, but you're not as good as this guy. And even though he just wrecked his shit and ruined it, we're gonna give him your car. You go sit this one out, bud. You're all right.
The biggest fear for a racing driver isn't an accident, isn't getting hurt. It's not having a drive. And Logan Sargent this weekend does not have a drive. And it sucks. Like, I hate it for him. He has been struggling. Of the 2 drivers, Alex Albon has been proving that he's a little bit better and he's got the results to prove it. But like, you still can't help but to hate it for him. Like, I felt so bad when I read that article. I was like, no, you can't do that to this young kid. That's going to kill his confidence. And they get next week off. Or
it's going to light a fire in his ass.
I would hope so, but he has to have the right people around him to spin it that way.
Oh, okay.
Because you can't. Athletes are so meticulous and all that any little thing will just get in their head and it could create bigger problems.
Yeah, it's any athletic sport.
Once you lose your drive, you panic as a racing driver. So, I mean, unless you're Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion, Max Verstappen, 3-time, probably going to be 4-time after this season. You're more than likely, like, your days are numbered in a race car. It's up to you to realize how numbered they are.
I gotcha. So basically, man, that's rough.
Think of it like this.
Staring
Think of
that
it like
in the
this.
face, right?
Think of it like this. I'm trying to think of say Ryan Tannehill and Kirk Cousins, right? They have say they have the same head shape, and Kirk Cousins is starting. They switch series back and forth.
Okay.
For whatever, say there's a rule that you have to alternate quarterbacks.
Okay.
Okay. Unless you don't have enough equipment. Ryan Tannehill's doing his best. Kirk Cousins goes out there, gets hit. His helmet breaks. We now have to use Ryan Tannehill's helmet. You can't use this helmet anymore.
I'm not gonna lie to you, buddy. I was really wondering where you were going with the
I'm saying, like,
head shape thing.
Yeah,
but you brought it home real nicely. No, I completely get it, and
it's
really
an equipment.
sucked.
It's an equipment issue that is keeping him from participating this weekend.
Exactly, dude. That's wild. But hopefully, like you said, it brings him around to do it the right way.
So one of the things that Formula One is known for stuff like this. It's unfortunate, but you could have the star driver of the team come in. He'll drive the car, and he'll notice his teammates going better, and he'll go, "I want that chassis. Give me that car." The next morning, that driver who's driving the better car goes in and goes, this feels different than yesterday. And it's like, yeah, we gave him your car. That has happened. There has been, so this isn't even the most heartbreaking thing. Just a little kind of history lesson. There was a race in the 80s. I think it was in 86. A driver got pole position. And he was like, oh, man, like I did good. And he performed pretty mid, but he got pole position. Go to the grid. The team's pushing his car back and saying, yeah, no, he wants your car. So he sucked. The other driver took off, went to the lead, and won the race because the other driver was a star.
Wow. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Jeez, dude. It almost sounds like, God, what, Talladega Nights, right? Where it's kind of like, it's all about Ricky Bobby. And the other guy, and Cal's just got to take it.
Kinda. Yeah, but
in those situations.
So the difference between that so that's NASCAR.
Yeah, of course.
And I'll just say it. In NASCAR, the team aspect is a little less about, hey, I got to beat my teammate, and more about, hey, I got to try to get my teammate as best a finish as I can, especially in like Talladega style races where it's like, if I can help my teammate, I'm gonna, but at the last lap, it's every man for themselves. Okay, I can help get you to that position, but that's it. In Formula One, your teammate is your number one rival because they are supposed to be in identically set up cars. Like, it's supposed to be the same performance across the board, which it's not, because these are pretty much built from scratch cars.
Yeah, there's no carbon copy.
Right. So you look at it as, say you and I are teammates in Formula One. The only person I know I have to beat is you because you and I have the same car. So that if it comes down to it in the championship, I'm fighting for a championship and you're, say, fighting for 5th, I'm going to get the preferential treatment because I can win the team a championship.
Exactly. It almost is like they kind of, it's incentivized rivalries between you and your teammate, right?
Right. And you have some moments where it's like, a lot of times it gets ugly. Like, there's a documentary out called Senna where they talk about Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost, who were teammates at McLaren, and there were times they hated each other. They wrecked each other at the Japanese Grand Prix one year. And if you ever get the chance to watch the documentary, watch it. It's really fantastic.
It's on my list.
But it shows what Formula One drivers are like and what the attitude is of Formula One. Whereas if you watch you say Talladega Nights, I'll say like Days of Thunder, where it's, hey, we still got to work together somehow, but I mean, they were still wrecking each other in that. Trying to think of any other movies or documentaries or anything like that.
No, I think those are pretty good examples you laid out there. I've heard
Or
nothing but rave reviews on
there's
that documentary, though.
there's another documentary out right now about Dan Weldon called The Lionheart, and it's on HBO Max or Max. I keep wanting to say HBO Max. It's on Max. But there's a part where they talk about one year Dan was lap down, his teammate was fighting for the lead, and he was holding up his teammate because he was trying to get his lap back. And so they had to have a meeting with him and said, hey, man, like, you fucked me over. We're a team. We work together on this. And then so it is a fantastic documentary. I definitely recommend it for you to watch. It talks about definitely. Dan Weldon, and it talks about his kids coming up in racing. So
well, you know me, Joey. I'm slowly but surely getting there. I'm slowly but surely.
I think with you, you'll watch the documentaries because it'll add a layer of like story to it. Because like
exactly,
you and I, we both like wrestling, like you said, and it's
fantastic.
We like the storyline behind the fight.
We like the why.
Yeah,
the why. Exactly, dude. Exactly. Oh, right.
Speaking of wrestling, I know this is going to be a little blurb before we sign off, but did you watch Cody's
I finally did.
Promo on Monday?
That big Dwayne energy?
Or the LDS?
LDS? Oh, dude, great. Fantastic. I actually watched last night's stuff as well. I really like the way they're doing it. Makes Rome. Have you seen last night yet?
I saw the Roman stuff.
Yeah, I really like that one because it brings Roman back to the forefront, right? There was a little problem there where it was getting a little bit more, is this going to be more of a Cody Rock feud, or is this Roman? Is Roman going to be kind of cast a shadow over? But no, he came back with a punch. Like, I'm pumped. I cannot wait.
I'm pissed I'm going to miss night one live.
I have a feeling that somebody's screwing over somebody in night one. And I just don't know if it's going to be The Rock versus Roman Reigns or if it's Seth versus Cody. I don't know yet.
I'll be honest. The way this is heading, I think they leave. Like, I don't think anybody's going to screw anybody over. I think if it does happen, it's like Drew McIntyre comes in and screws over Seth.
Maybe. Could be.
But
100%.
I just don't think that. I think they need to leave that one alone.
Yeah.
Well,
there's just so many possibilities now.
Yeah. I think this is the renaissance of WWE.
100%. Because they're being run more as a media. So it's actually being booked to be entertaining to everyone or the majority, and not just being entertaining to one old skeevy man.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I feel like that's the biggest thing. You have a creative team now that's absolutely fantastic, that knows how to weave stories in and out and drag stories out. Because our biggest thing was last year was like, how are they going to keep Cody and Roman fresh for a whole year?
Yeah.
And by golly, they've done it.
I was listening to an interview earlier, and they said that this entire renaissance can be pointed back to WrestleMania 38 in Dallas.
When Cody came back?
When Cody came back, Austin was back. Or Austin had his match. Just there's a lot of excitement coming out of that where it's like everything can be pointed back to that moment. And it's like, This feels refreshing. This feels new. And then like you look at it like, Vince McMahon started, I'm going to step back. Then TKO happened. And now it's this whole new thing that can only go up from here. I mean, they've been selling out buildings. Like you look at it,
right.
You look at it and it's like, oh my God, this looks like from when I was a kid. The only thing missing is like the quadrillion signs everywhere that you can't see people. You just see people holding signs.
I was about to say, I think that's more of along the lines of they got tired of people complaining about the signs.
I'm sure it is. But no, like what I'm saying is like when you look at like the 90s.
Oh, no, I know
the Attitude Era. It's just like you see the signs and it's just like, oh my God, it looks so packed.
It's like signs everywhere, signs. On that note, I think that's a good spot. When we start singing, I think it's time for us to wrap it up there.
When we start singing, it's time to, the wrap it up music starts playing.
Well, we want to say thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Noble, Steady, Sorta Sports Talk. Anything you want to leave our wonderful people with, Joey?
I don't have anything today, but I'll have something next week.
As always, stay classy. We'll see y'all next time.